faculty, authors have in view in order to pay for their open access are library budgets, and we're all aware of that. The espresso book machine, this is probably just a first machine that will do these sorts of things. Again, what does that mean if you can bring it together with e-books, with printing on demand, with open access? What does that mean for our business? What are we in for? Besides these kind of recent, or more or less recent things, we're facing with major budget cuts. That's nothing new. That's something we're used to. And the cost of information that keeps outpacing inflation. That is also something that is not new, but again, increases, I guess, the urgency and the disruption of these different evolutions. I want to bring you to a book by Ray Kurzweil, and I imagine most of you know Ray Kurzweil. I don't know him personally, I've just read him and seen him on videos. And in his book, The Singularity is Near, from 2005, he talks about the growth of change, or the rapid increase, the exponential growth of change. And he shows that through a variety of ways, and I've copied one out of his book, where he shows how long it took for a particular new invention in the communication industry to catch on with about a quarter of the US public. And when you look at the late 1800s, 1880s, the telephone, it took 50, 60 years for the telephone to catch on with about a quarter of the American population. When you look at new things, the web, it is less than 10 years, it's 7 years, 8 years before a quarter of the population is using that. So there is a great increase in the adoption of new technology through which our paradigm, the way we do business, the way we think about libraries changes. Another few quotes from that same book. So he says the rate of paradigm shift technological evolution is accelerating right now. That was in 2005, doubling every decade. So that the amount of time for the public to accept something like that is diminishing faster and faster. I think that also brings us to some challenges, and that sometimes I've shown you that Edvard Munch painting. That I think is one of the reasons why we sometimes scream and think, how are we going to catch up with that evolution again? How are we going to deal with that again? Now, how do libraries deal with that? And this is just a little tidbit of information from Leiden itself, just to show what kind of issues we all deal with, I think. I'm on the wrong slide. That picture will come in a moment. So again, as I already mentioned at the beginning, libraries have changed tremendously, and I think if we don't get a pat on our back from our presidents or from your university librarian, give yourself a pat on your back. We've done, I think, a tremendous job so far. But to a great extent, we have not done away with services. We've added on services, and most of us have maintained the services we have traditionally given our users. Basically because there remains a user base, some user base, and it's a question about how small that user base has to become before you do away with the service. And we've also resided in the existing paradigm. One thing that forces us to do that in a way is that decisions about libraries at the top level of universities are not based on major discussions about the future of information provision at universities, where deans and presidents are going to take that on as an issue, but it's basically about how financially we're going to run the university, and it's basically budgetary considerations that do set quite often the agenda And as I already noticed, change is outpacing. At least I have that feeling, and I don't know about you, but I'll hear that after the talk. So now to that local thing that I think we all will probably recognize. We earlier on this year in Leiden did a survey of mainly humanities students, asking them about our facilities and the types of facilities they wanted. We are in the midst of making some major changes in our library facilities. And I'm not going to show you everything, I'm just going to show you the things I was surprised of that were as high on the wish list as they were. And these were the things that were at the top of the wish list of these students, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds. Monitor quiet study areas, so it's definitely quiet there. More material in the open stacks. Little need for group spaces. We don't need that, thank you. I'd rather sit by myself with a book or a PC or a laptop in front of me. And please stop closing institute libraries. What are we doing and what are we planning to do? We are creating a variety of study areas. We are reducing the size of the open stacks and creating a learning environment. We are creating a variety of group spaces, and we're closing down small libraries and transferring those collections to the library of those stacks. In our mission of Leiden, it says that we are a customer-oriented library. So I can be caught on that one by our users. Still, I think we are right and our users are wrong. And that's why we're doing it. But this is something that really is at the core of our issue, I think, of how can we really create a modern infrastructure or postmodern infrastructure for information provision. Let me look at some traditional library functions to illustrate that point a little bit further. Selection. Selection has, to a certain extent, gone by the wayside. Definitely, when we look at journals, we have big deals. There's no selection going on there any longer. We know that big deals are not going to be able to sustain, or we're not going to be able to sustain them because of the pricing. Although our users love it, love to have access to all that information. So probably we'll go towards more flexible big deals based on usage and particular research profiles, so that we invest in certain research areas more money and less money, or no money in other research areas. But again, it's not going to be based much on selection. Books, I think in Europe we are moving about 10 or 15 years or 20 years after the US has done that before us. We're moving towards approval plans, or we're readying ourselves for approval plans. I think that is a first step of outsourcing part of the selection, of making a selection based on profiles that you control yourself still, but nevertheless the actual selection happens anywhere else. To, are we ready now for building our collections based on the user at the moment of need? Again, I would like to keep in context e-books, printing on demand, these types of things, the espresso machine. Why did we collect, or why did we bring collections into our libraries? We brought collections into our libraries because books go out of print. And the only reason why we have these collections is that otherwise we would never be able to give a book to a user after a year or 2 years after publication date.